What's going on, guys? It is Corey from SuperKamiGuru9000, and welcome to my review of Bleach, Chapter 508. Yamamoto continues to be a complete and awesome badass this week as he continues to fight against the leader of the Vandenrite, Juhabok. And this week he's just continuing to show why he's just the most powerful character in all of the Gotei 13. And he is just continuously pushing this character back. Now in the last chapter we got to see that he was activating a portion of his Bankai, the Zanka no Tachi. It was the West ability. This time he's going to be using it in full. And he is just going crazy fighting against this guy. Now Juhabok doesn't have his sword anymore, so he has to resort on some more of his other Quincy weaponry this week. We get to see that he's actually going to be using his Quincy arrows against Yamamoto, but this doesn't fucking matter. He just bats this thing away like it's no big deal and powers up even more and gets right up in his face. So Juhabok can't use his sword, and his arrows really aren't going to be able to do anything against Yamamoto, so he uses his other really cool new Quincy technique known as the Sanctuswinga Wandersex! And this whole technique, as flashy as it is, doesn't really do too much. What is cool is it creates this just sort of giant halo ring all the way around Juhabok, and there are all these other sort of Quincy crosses that are exploding out of the ground, and he basically explains if you step within this light, you're screwed. You're going to be struck down by the Lord himself. And Yamamoto's like, you know what, this doesn't mean shit! And he just like stabs the ground with his sword and gets right up in his face. And this is when the best part of the whole chapter begins, when he gets to activate another part of his Zanka no Tachi. Now, before we saw that we had the East and we had the West abilities. It's pretty obvious that we're going to have a South and a North ability now, and we actually get to see the South ability this week, and this is probably my favorite technique I've seen in the entire series so far. I just think it's so fucking metal, and it's just a really, really great panel. With Yamamoto's Zanka no Tachi, he literally summons this army of skeletons from the ground, and it looks like he's going to have them all fight against Juhabok. And the cool thing about this panel is you can see that Yamamoto's just sort of hanging out, he's on fire, and he's just surrounded by all of these skeletons, which I'm hoping are on fire too, because I just think that would be incredibly awesome. And if you look a little bit farther back in the panel, you can see one of the skeletons who's throwing his arms up and has a goofy look on his face. Yo!
Skull joke!
So I don't even have to think about it. This is a 10 out of 10 chapter. It was just more raw, solid action, but like I've said before, if I'm not going to have story, at least I better have some really good action, and this week, again, it delivered. This week, again, just showed us that Kubo can draw characters really, really well. There were a lot of really close-up panels of Yamamoto's face and Juhabok's face, and they were both incredibly detailed. In particular, Yamamoto, you can just see how pissed off he is and how he just doesn't give a fuck anymore, and he's even at the point where it's like, it doesn't matter, man. Even if I'm going to die, if I'm going to die, I'm going to burn up all Soul Society with it. So it just shows how serious he is, and I can only talk about that final panel so much. It's just so awesome. Just such an interesting technique, and, you know, it's crazy because we've seen a lot of Bankais in the series, and some of the Bankais have some multiple abilities, but Yamamoto just has so many tricks up his sleeve, and being able to summon just all these skeletons from the ground, and he's going to make them fight against them, I just think is really, really cool. And a lot of them appear to have swords and everything, so it's going to be a really interesting chapter next week. And one thing that's interesting to note is this is still just kind of the beginning of this last arc, so this is crazy how it's opening up this way. So it can only continue to go up from here, but like I said, this was a 10 out of 10 chapter, just really, really fun to read. This brand new Zanka no Tachi South ability is my favorite technique I've seen in the series. It is just so awesome looking. I can't wait to see what it can fully do. So, just really, really fun chapter. You guys need to check this shit out. Alright guys, how did you feel about this week's chapter of Bleach? Did you like seeing the Zanka no Tachi South ability? And also, what do you guys think this Zanka no Tachi North ability is going to be? You can let me know with your comments below. And remember guys, as always, if you like this video, make sure and give it a thumbs up. That concludes this review today. SuperKamiGuru9000. Out.
Yeah, bitches!